Hi everybody, welcome to another Yarn Scrap Friday with me, Laura, and we are picking a suggestion from the monthly subscriber idea jar. So let's find out what I will be designing this week. Let's have a look. What will it be? This one. Okay, so I shall be designing a tiny Christmas sweater. That's quite a fun, festive idea. And that's from Genevieve. So thank you, Genevieve, for your suggestion. And if you want to drop your suggestions in the idea jar, then do check out our monthly subscription. And this is what I came up with. So these are my tiny little crochet Christmas jumpers. So I really hope you like this design. For this pattern, we are using a sport baby weight yarn. So it's a yarn weight of 2, but you can use any yarn weight that you like. With that, I'm going to be using a 3mm crochet hook, and it's also a good idea to have a yarn needle and a pair of scissors as well. Okay, so let's begin. So I think for this pattern I'm going to make a green one, just in one colour like this, just for the ease of the tutorial. But of course you can mix up the different rounds with different colours to make it more fun. So for this one I'm just going to use green and white, and we're going to start off with the border colour, the ribbing at the bottom, as it were. So in this case I'm going to use a white, so hopefully it shows up okay. And what we're going to do is a little slip knot. So we're creating foundation stitches, half double crochet foundation stitches. This pattern's in US terminology. So in UK terms, that's going to be half treble foundation stitches. Now, if you've never done foundation stitches before, don't worry, it should be fairly easy to follow along. But we're going to make 12, but the first thing we'll do is chain 2. 1 and 2. We're going to yarn over because we're doing half double crochets, and we're going to put our hook into the first chain, bring the yarn through, and then because it's a foundation chain, we're going to create a little chain stitch on the left hand side. To do that, we're going to yarn over and just pull through the first loop only, and then because it's a half double crochet, we then yarn over, pull through all 3. So it's easy as that, she says. But then we're going to yarn over, and for the next one, instead of working into the first chain, we're going to work into that little stitch we made on the left hand side. So we're going to find, just above our chain, we're going to find that stitch. So you want to go under 2 little bits of yarn, bring the yarn through there, and just, keep it quite loose. And then again, we need to create another chain on the left-hand side. So we pull through the first loop only, then pull through all 3. Okay, and we're going to do that 12 times. So that's our first 2. So yarn over, then the next one goes into that new stitch that we made on the left-hand side. And if this is a little bit fast, then you can follow my slower tutorial. I'll put a link in the description below to a slower foundation stitch tutorial. Bring the yarn through that stitch, and again we create another foundation chain on the left hand side, pull for the first loop only, pull through all 3. So we're going to do 12 of those. If you really struggle with this, you can, to get your 12 half double crochets, you can chain 13 and then work a half double crochet in your second chain from your hook and in each chain along to get a stitch count of 12 half double crochets if you prefer. But I'll put the written version on my website. Okay, so let's make 12 of these. Okay, so we've got our 12 half double crochet foundation stitches, and then what we want to do is, keeping it the right way up, we're going to put our yarn at the top, and then we're going to fold this over, and then we need to find our first stitch. So not the chains, the first half double crochet. Put your hook into there, bring the yarn through that first stitch and straight through the loop on your hook, like so. So it's very important not to get this twisted. And then we're going to join our colour. So for this particular jumper, we're going to use the green yarn. And we're just going to yarn over with the green yarn and bring that through our loop on our hook, and just pull your tail ends, and we're actually going to cut the white yarn so we don't get tangled. And now we're working with the green. Now we're going to create the pattern, and to do that we're going to yarn over and we're going to half double crochet 2 stitches together. So we're going to go back into that first stitch we just slip stitched into, bring the yarn through, then yarn over and go into the next stitch, bring the yarn through. You've got 5 loops, pull through all 5 loops, and then we're going to chain 1. And we're going to repeat that all the way around, but we're going to start in the last stitch worked, so not in a fresh stitch. So for the next one, we're going to yarn over, go into that last stitch worked, bring the yarn through, then yarn over and go into the next fresh stitch, bring the yarn through. Got 5 loops, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. And do that all the way around, always starting in that last stitch worked. It's hard to say. Pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. Okay, and you should end up with a stitch count of 22, including the chain 1s in between, but not the chain 1 at the beginning. Okay, so I shall do that, and then I shall come back. Okay, just coming up to the end, and what we've got left here is 1 stitch and our previous slip stitch, which can look like another stitch, but again we're working into the last stitch worked, yarn over into the very last stitch, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1, then skip that previous slip stitch, pull our tail ends in a bit, and slip stitch in our first decrease. Slip stitch into there, and don't worry if there's a little bit of a hole here, we can sew that up at the end if we need to. Okay, so for the next 2 rounds what we're going to do is a little chain 1, and don't count that as a stitch, and then yarn over and start your decrease in the previous chain 1 space. So kind of need to go back a little bit, put your hook into that previous chain 1 space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, then find the next chain 1 space here. Then pull, yarn over, pull through all 5 loops just like before, and then chain 1. Then for the next one we start in the same chain 1 space we last worked, so we go back into there again, bring the yarn through, yarn over, then into the next fresh chain 1 space, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. And do that all the way around, always starting in the previous chain 1 space and then going into the next chain 1 space, making sure to chain 1 in between. And again, your stitch count should be 22, not including that first chain 1 at the very, very, very beginning. Okay, so I shall do that, and we're going to do that for 2 rounds. Okay, 2 rounds. So I shall do that, and then I shall come back. Just worth noting, however, just when you get to the end of the round, so I'm just coming up to the end, is chain 1. When you get to the very end, you want to work into, this will be our last chain 1 space, and we're going to work into that last chain 1 space again, bring the yarn through, but then yarn over and go into that very first chain 1 that we sort of went backwards at the very, very beginning, worked into. You need to go in there as well for these rounds. And then don't forget to chain 1, and then slip stitch in your very first half double crochet 2 together, and be careful because that's your previous slip stitch. There's a tiny chain 1, find that first decrease half double crochet together, slip stitch into there. Okay, and your stitch count should be 22. Okay, so I'm going to do that for 1 more round. Okay, so chain 1, work into the previous chain 1 space, it's just slightly below, yarn over into the next chain 1 space, pull through all 5, chain 1, and just do the same thing again, working into the last stitch worked, then working into a fresh stitch, chain 1. Okay, and again when you just come up to the end, you need to do one more in the last chain one space worked and in the very first chain one space worked to keep that stitch count. Okay, and don't forget to chain one, slip stitch in your first decrease. Okay, so that's the end of round 4, and this joining area will be right at the back. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn, pull that loop through, and we're going to hide our tail ends. But we want to do an invisible join with the green. So to do that, that's the stitch we just slip stitched into. Then we're going to skip the next stitch, which is the chain one, and find the next decrease stitch. Put our our needle into there. Just bring that through. Don't pull too tightly. And then going back, this is our last stitch here. We're just going to go into there, but in the back loop only. And then that creates a little stitch over that chain one and creates a nice invisible join and keeps our stitch count at 22. And then we're going to just hide, secure that on the inside and trim down any excess. And now also just hide your beginning tail ends as well. Okay, so I shall do that and then I shall come back. Also, it's a good opportunity to sew up that little hole that appears. Okay, so once you've done that, we're now going to work on the arms and then we join the whole thing together. So we're just going to put that down to the side and we're going to bring back the white yarn. And what we want to do is we're going to do 4 half double crochet foundation stitches this time. So we're going to do a little slip knot. And again, we chain 2, 1 and 2. Yarn over, because we're doing half double crochets. Put your hook into the first chain, bring the yarn through, and again we need to create that chain on the left hand side, so we pull through the first loop only, then we yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, we do that 4 times. So we yarn over, and this time we go into the stitch we created, so just like before, pull for the first loop only, pull through all 3. Okay, let's do 2 more of those until we've got 4. And again, if this is too hard, to get your 4 half double crochets, you could chain 5 instead and work 1 half double crochet into your second chain from your hook and in each chain along, just so you've got your 4 half double crochets. And once you've got 4, we're going to get our colour again. Yarn over with our green. Pull that through, pull that down, and then we can trim off our white, finish with the white. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn our work. We're going to yarn over and we're going to work a half double crochet in that first stitch, just 1 half double crochet by itself. And then we are going to chain 1. Then we're going to half double crochet 2 together, but we're going to work in the last stitch worked to begin. So we yarn over, go into that first stitch again, bring the yarn through, yarn over into the next stitch, bring the yarn through, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. And do that all the way across. So again, the next half double crochet decrease starts in the second stitch we just worked, yarn over into the third stitch, pull through all 5 loops, chain 1. Then 1 more, starting in the third stitch, ending in the last 4th stitch. Pull through all 5 loops. Chain 1, so we still chain 1. We're going to finish up with just 1 half double crochet in the same last stitch. So go back in there again and work a half double crochet. Okay, so we should have a stitch count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think. Okay, then we're going to chain 1, don't count that as a stitch, and turn. I'm going to do the same thing again, but in the chain 1 spaces. So we're going to find that first chain 1 space here, work a half double crochet, chain 1, then we do a decrease starting in the same chain 1 space, yarn over into the next chain 1 space, pull through all 5, chain 1, and do that all the way across. So we start I'll decrease in the previous chain 1 space, yarn over into the next chain 1 space, pull through all, oh, I lost that one. No, oh my gosh. Let's try that again. There we go, chain 1, and then the last one goes in the third chain 1 space, and the very last chain 1 space here. But we finish up like before with a chain 1 and then just 1 half double crochet by itself, well, not by itself, it's in the same last stitch, like so. Okay, so that is the end of the first arm. So that very slowly because I'm thinking. So what we're going to do is we're going to fasten off this one, but not the second one, but leave a little bit of tail for sewing up your arm at the end, which will make more sense at the end. So we're just going to pull that loop through. We're just going to set this aside and we're going to repeat this exact same steps for another arm, but we're not going to fasten off. So I shall do that and then I shall come back and then show you what to do next. Okay, so I've finished making the second arm. So I've fastened off with this one, but we're going to continue with the second one. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to do exactly the same thing again. So find the first chain 1 space, work a half double crochet, chain 1, then work a decrease over the last stitch worked and the next chain 1 space. So exactly the same as before. Chain 1 all the way across. So again, starting in the last chain 1 space, then into the next one, chain 1. Again, last chain 1 space, and then the last chain 1 space. And then we finish up with chain 1 and just 1 half double crochet. So we have a stitch count of 9, so it should be 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, yes. So now we've got 4 rows, and what we want to do is bring back our little main jumper and making sure the seam is at the back. We're going to find the chain 1 space, so let's count 1 decrease, 2 decrease, 3. We're going to find the chain 1 space that's on the side, so here. Okay, so just put that there. I'm going to yarn over first, put our hook into that chain 1 space on the side, and we're going to work a decrease. So we're going to bring our yarn through, keeping things tight, then we yarn over again and find the next chain 1 space. Okay, so we've worked into the chain 1 space on the side, but we yarned over first, got 3 loops, then go into the next chain 1 space, bring the yarn through. It's a little bit fiddly at first, got 5 loops, pull through all 5 loops, then we chain 1. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way over to the other side, and there should be 6 decreases in total. So that's our first one. And again, we're always starting in the previous stitch worked. So that's 1 decrease. Our next decrease, chain 1. Remembering, always start in the previous chain 1 space. This is our third one. 3, chain 1, don't forget to chain 1 in between. Next one, 4. The next one, 5. And the last one, chain 1, 6. So we do 6 decreases along the front. Okay, don't forget to chain 1. Okay, keeping that pattern, but we've joined the little arm. Now we're at the other side. We want to get the other arm. But the first thing to do though is I'm not going to tie those tailings because I need them for sewing, so ignore that. We're just going to yarn over here, then find the first chain 1 space of this arm. Okay, in there, but we're just going to do 1 half double crochet by itself. So we're a little bit fiddly joining, so just keep pulling that yarn, keeping those loops tight, holding on your project, and work just a half double crochet. Excuse my neighbour's dog if you can hear that. The crazy dog. Then what we're going to do is, after that 1 half double crochet, we chain 1, then do a decrease starting in the last stitch worked. So it's the same as the previous arm. Next chain 1 space, chain 1, then another decrease, work that all the way across, but starting in the last chain 1 space worked. Chain 1, then one more decrease, find that last chain 1 space, and then we finish up, because it's the arm, we finish up with chain 1 and just 1 half double crochet in that same last chain 1 space. So we're keeping that stitch count of 9 across the arm here. Then what we need to do is not get in a mess with our tail ends. So we're going to yarn over, keep that tail end out of the way, bring back your main body, and again just going back to the normal pattern, starting in the last stitched worked here. You can see it. We go into there, keep things tight, yarn over into the next chain 1 space, just working decreases, pull through all 5, chain 1, and just repeat that up to the end. Okay, and there should be, I think, 6 along here as well. So that's 1. Next decrease, remember, always starting in the previous chain 1 space worked. 2. 3. 4. So this is 4. It's going across the seam at the back. 4. 5. And it looks like you're at the end, but we need to do our 6th one. And the 6th one, just like before when we were working the main body, is we work in the last stitch worked, yarn over, and then go into the same one we started in here, which is already worked as well. So you just need to make sure you do 6 along the back as well. Chain 1, and then where are we? Let's keep the arm. Keep the arm. Right, where's the arm? So once we get back to here on the body, we need to not slip stitch here, we need to slip stitch in that half double crochet on the arm. Okay, so find the half double crochet on the arm and slip stitch into there. Okay, so we need to make sure we join the other part of the arm. Okay, so you've got 2 flappy arms on your jumper, but now we're going to start bringing it together. So we're just going to do a normal round of decreases like on the main body. So we're going to chain 1, start in the previous chain 1 space, which is going to be like this massive gap basically underneath the arm. We're going to start in there. That's our pre-last chain 1. Start in there, bring the yarn through, yarn over, we're doing decreases, and then go into the next chain 1 space on the arm. Pull through all 5. Then chain 1. Then we're going to work decreases along the arm, always starting in the previous chain 1 space worked. So no individual half double crochets, this is all decreases now. Chain 1. Next one. Chain 1. Then the next one. Always starting in that previous chain 1. Now when we get to, right, don't miss that next chain 1 because it's going to be between that decrease and the half double crochet. Okay, don't forget that one there. Pull through all 5, chain 1, and then the next one is we start in that previous stitch worked, just like before, yarn over, but then the next chain 1 space is this massive gap, so there's a chain 1 in between the arm and the body. So we go into there and do our decrease. Okay, chain 1, and then we start again in the same massive gap previously worked. Yarn over, and then into a normal chain 1 space on the body. Just continue across, working those decreases and chain 1s. And then when you get to the other arm, again, we work into that huge chain 1 space here. Then we're going to start joining the arm. Well, we've already joined the arm, but we're going to work across the arm, but we start in the previous stitch, which is the big gap. Then the first chain one space here, and just work across the arm as well, just working decreases and chain ones. Always going into that previous, starting in that previous stitch. Okay. Just keep working the pattern all the way around back to the beginning, and try not to miss that chain one space on the end of the arm, because it can look like you want to go into this big gap, but there is one there, so it's where that half double crochet is by itself. Well, it's not by itself, but you know what I mean. So don't miss that one. Next one's going to be in the huge gap, big chain one space, and then we're almost back at the beginning. Starting in the big gap, then back to the main body, chain one, and just finish up across the remainder of the main jumper. And almost back at the beginning. Chain one, and the very last one is going to be, I think the last one is going to be here, and then in the big gap here, which is where we started, chain one, and then we slip stitch into our very first decrease. So we end up on that large gap as well, which is where we started at the very beginning of that round. Okay, so hopefully it looks like that. Now we're just going to finish up with a decrease round. So we're going to chain one, we're going to half double crochet two together, always starting in the previous stitch like before, but we're not going to chain one in between. So again, we're going to start in that previous chain one, so you kind of need to come back a bit. Then yarn over into the next chain one space, pull through all 5 loops, but don't chain one. So there's no chaining one, but we are going to start in the same previous stitch. So it's exactly the same as before, but there's no chaining. Oh, I nearly chained in between. There's no chaining in between, so it's quite hard to get out of the habit. So just decreases, but always starting in the previous stitch. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I shall come back. Just coming up to the end of the round, last chain one space, and again, just like the previous round, we need to work into the last chain one space again, then yarn over, we go back into the very first chain one space that we also worked to finish, and then we slip stitch in our first decrease. Okay, so that's decreased with no chaining in between. Then we're going to rejoin our white yarn, and we just finish up the very, very last round. So we're going to rejoin our white yarn in a chain one. Okay, we can cut our green yarn. We've got a lot of tail ends going on here. What we're going to do now is we just have normal stitches now. We have no chain one spaces. So we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together, but we're not going to start the decrease in the previous stitch. So it's just normal crocheting. So we're going to go back into that first stitch we just slip stitched into, bring the yarn through, then into the next stitch, 3 loops for single crochet, decrease, pull through all 3. Then the next one we do not start in the previous stitch. We go into a fresh stitch, bring the yarn through into the next stitch, bring the yarn through, pull through all 3 loops. Okay, then fresh stitch, bring the yarn through, fresh stitch, bring the yarn through, pull through all 3 for a single crochet decrease. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way around, and that is our last round. Then when you get to the end, you've probably just got 1 stitch left. So we're going to go into there, and then this was our previous slip stitch. We're going to go into there, so it's not a proper stitch. For our last decrease, so I think we end up with an odd number, and then we just slip stitch in our first decrease to finish, then cut your yarn, pull that loop through. So all that's left to do now is, where's the front? This is the front. All that's left to do now is we need to sew up our sleeves along here and along here, tie in all our tail ends, and then I shall come back and show you the finished jumper. And there we go, there is our finished little tiny Christmas jumper sweater decoration. So just sewed along there, hid all the tail ends, and there we go. And like I said, you can alternate the rounds in different colours. You can clearly see where the arms join the body on this design, and these can be used as tree decorations or as gift tags, or even if you want to on the Christmas table, holiday season table, you could slip them onto spoons on the table if you wanted to, which would be really fun. But I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along. It's not an easy one, it's a little bit complicated, and it took us multiple attempts to film this tutorial. But a huge thank you to our monthly subscribers for helping make these tutorials possible. If you'd like to know more about our monthly subscription, there is a crochet magazine, there is a podcast, behind the scenes, exclusive content, so do check it out, and it really helps support Happy Berry. But thank you for watching, and I will see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Thanks for watching. Bye.